Hi, I'm Alemay Fernandez, proud Compass member since 2016. I have been a professional musician for just over 22 years, and I am a jazz singer. I also do a little bit of soul and R&B once in a while, just to keep things interesting, but I'm predominantly a jazz singer. I started out doing TV and voiceovers as a child in musical theatre, and then when I was old enough, I started singing in pubs and clubs around town, and then it grew, of course, and I started to do more exciting things like concerts and festivals, and now I travel the world representing Singapore. Crafting Hard to Imagine, the album, was a labor of love because it took me over 5 years. And the reason for this is because I was self-funding, so I would need to work and save up money before I could get into the studio and record songs. So I was doing sort of one song at a time. So the album, I feel, is like a musical diary of sorts. It has a song from different types of genres that inspired me and helped me become the artist that I am. And so each song is different in its own way. It has arrangements from just me and a double bass all the way up to a big band tune and everything in between. It has a gospel song, it has a Latin song, it has jazz numbers, it has, catchy sort of clap along fun songs. I feel like it has something for everyone. It's like a different chapter in my life, each song. The art to a great performance is really understanding how to engage with people. I think the reason people leave one of my shows feeling like they've had a good time is because I include them in everything I do. I'm constantly talking to them, I'm telling them stories, giving them background and context to the songs that I'm doing. I'm very conscious of whether or not the crowd and the audience is with me, and they're engaged and they're listening and they're entertained. That's the most important thing. We're here to entertain. So if they're not entertained, then something is wrong. The other thing is I like to educate people. So I think that's part of our job as entertainers, is we educate people about music, especially jazz. A lot of people come into my shows and they have no idea what jazz is, or they've never been to a jazz club in their lives. So I make it a point to explain everything, just in case it's somebody's first time, so that they leave understanding more about the genre, hopefully finding a new song that they like. And I tell them, if you like a song, please make sure you go home, look up the artist and add it to your playlist, because that's how we get more people listening to the genre. Okay, jazz in Singapore. Wow, I have to say, the scene has gone through many changes. The most important thing about music is it's very much a cultural thing. So it moves with the time. Obviously, because of all that's been happening over the last 40, 50 years, we've definitely come a very long way. I believe when I first started in the scene, jazz was not exactly like the most popular genre. But that's okay, because jazz has always been a niche genre. 20, 30 years ago, jazz was very much a foreigner's music. So a lot of the foreigners living in Singapore, a lot of the tourists coming through town, they were like the predominant audience. Now, it's changed a lot. We have a very thriving young jazz scene now in Singapore. A lot of young people very much into jazz. I think predominantly before, the scene was mostly older musicians, but now it's kind of the other way around, which is really encouraging. Of course, COVID, put a big damper in things and slowed things down, but I'm hoping that it will pick back up, because I think there's a really exciting, talented young group of people now in the scene. I think the bottom line with anything you're trying to do, regardless of whether you're doing music or not, if you choose to do something like, I want to write, or I want to make music, or I want to be a performer, you have to go in it guns blazing. There's no timid, gradual, let me see how I can warm myself up into it. It's like, no, you have to go into it 1,000% and know exactly what you're trying to say. And it doesn't matter what you're trying to say, you just have to know. And that can be challenging. As long as you're saying something that means something to you, nobody can argue with that. And whether or not people agree with you is irrelevant, because it's what you're trying to say, it's your story, it's your life experience, and nobody else has that but you. So don't worry about what other people tell you. It's like, oh, this is the hit music to write right now, this is what you should be writing. You have to be extremely honest with yourself, because the minute you're not, that's also very apparent in your songwriting, because songwriting is quite naked and bare. So if you are inauthentic, it's extremely obvious. So the key is be as authentic as you can be.